Hey guys, it's Neech. How you doing? I'm going to call this, I think, Trash Flashback. I think that's probably an appropriate name, and it's kind of the flashback to Trash Talking Radio show. I may flash back to one 2 weeks ago. I may flash back to one 18 years ago. And I'm going to flash back to one that was 15 years ago. It was in 2005, and what was rare about it, at least to my knowledge, it's the only Friday show that Mike ever had. But Mike had a special Friday Trash Talking Radio show, and he was having on Chris Jericho, who wrestled for many years in ECW, WCW, WWF, and now he's a part of AEW. And Jericho was also a lead singer of a band called Fozzy. They were going on tour, whatever they were doing, they were trying to promote their band some more. So Mike hooked up with somebody, and he was able to get Jericho to agree to come on, but it had to be that Friday night. So Mike had a special show. Mike ordered more stream. You know, this was in the days where trying to get stream and stuff was a lot different. And I don't know a lot of Mike's audience now, like if they were around to listen to the show back in '05. You might have been, so you'll remember it. But if you didn't, I just want to kind of take you back to it. It was the weirdest night I could ever think of, but it was also the most gratifying, I'm sure, for Mike. What was weird was he started the show like he normally does at 7 o'clock, and I believe Jericho was coming on at 8. So 8 o'clock comes, Chris calls, and Mike answers the phone, and Mike goes, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" And then all of a sudden, you just hear dead air. Mike's trying to get a hold of him, you know, he's trying to call him back, and at this point, Mike is so frustrated. He feels like he just screwed this all up. I've never seen Mike depressed ever on the air. Now, I've seen him depressed off the air, but I've never seen him depressed on the air. He was just a mess. He was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. He was so upset. As much as I wanted Jericho on, I felt for Mike because when you get a chance like that, you don't want anything to happen. So about 15 or 20 minutes go by, and he's convinced that he's lost this interview. He's very upset. And then what happens is, all of a sudden, Jericho calls back around 8:20, and he says, "Hey, I was wondering if we could reschedule. I have a match going on. Can we do the interview, like, say, 9:30? And Mike's like, "Definitely. Oh, my God, you're the man. Thank you for calling back." And Chris says, "No problem." He's like, "I'll call you back as soon as I get done what I need to get done." You know, WWF at the time was doing a house show. That was religious for them. They were on the road every day. So Chris was doing a house show. We're talking that night. Mike's doing trivia, and I remember just having a good time. I had started getting into the show like in September 2004, probably August, I would say. This was, I think, January or February at this point. I want to say January, though. And what was really cool about it was I'm starting to get to know all the people from the show, the people in the chat room, and we're all talking that night because we had a lot of time to kill. Back then, Mike's shows were different. He didn't discuss news or anything like that. Basically, his show was 7 o'clock, he interviewed one guest, 8 o'clock another, and 9 o'clock another. That's basically how he did the majority of his show. So this was a change of pace. We all got to bond with each other. I got to know some people from the chat room. Mike always interacted with the people in the room, but he got to do it a lot more because we had time to kill. I mean, Chris called back around 8:20, so we had like a good hour and a half until he was going to come back on, probably like an hour and 10 minutes. There's plenty of time to kill, so we were all kind of bonding, talking about different things. We talk about TV shows, we talk about wrestling, you name it, doing some trivia stuff. And it was really just a fun night. It was a different type of night, but it was a lot of fun. I think back to like the days of Trash Talking Radio back then when so many things were different. Like Mike would always have to update the calendar. He would really promote the independents a lot, and he would make sure that you knew what show was being where. And there were so many independent promotions, and Mike covered them all. He really did. He always promoted them. I really got to learn a lot about the independents and what these guys put in and the effort they do. It's about 9:35 and Jericho calls, and now they're doing the interview. You could just see what a good guy Jericho is. He was so polite. He wasn't rude. He wasn't being a jerk. He was answering every question Mike asked. We talked, obviously, about Fozzy, but Mike did ask some questions from the chat room, and Jericho did answer them, and it was a good conversation. And I think he stayed on for a good 40 minutes. I want to say it was about 40 minutes, which is huge because, guys, one thing to remember, Vince McMahon did not let his talent go on radio shows. He did not want them doing that. Vince is very, like, He wants to always think of wrestling as entertainment, not wrestling, so he wasn't big on that. So for Mike to get an interview like that, that really was a coup. It was huge, and it was just so much fun, and what I really liked was, what was crazy is Chris was calling him at the event, because the reason Chris had to get off the air is Chris had to go do a run-in. He had to interfere in a match, which I thought was pretty cool. And it was just such a great interview, and you could just see the relief when Mike got off the phone with him, because Mike had thought he messed that up, but he really didn't. You know, the thing with phones, they could frustrate you. Back then, if you weren't in good area or frequency wasn't good, you were screwed. You weren't going to be able to talk to each other. But I just look at that as like he hadn't had 2 full years yet in doing this radio show. And you just look at how far he came in the short amount of time. I mean, I started talking to Mike on IM, and like I said, I remember Kamala came on, The Ultimate Warrior, Stan Lane, I'm just naming a few, Gary Michael Capetta, and of course Brooke Hogan was on, and Hulk actually made an appearance while Brooke was on the show. But I'm talking to Mike, and I remember saying to him, I'm like, it'd be really cool if you could get like Nikolai Volkov, and Mike was like, I already had him on, just go to the website, he's there. Same thing with the Iron Sheik. I'm mentioning all these guys, and in less than a year, Mike had all these guys on. And I think the funny joke was with Mike is his mother didn't believe that he had all these guests on. He would talk to his mother, and he'd tell him, I had Hulk Hogan and his daughter Brooke, or I had on Bobby Heenan, whoever it might be. And she would always say, no, you didn't. Stop lying. You know, she did not believe him. She thought he was just BSing her. And it was really true. He had all these guests on. It was at that point, though, like, where I said to myself, something's happening big with this guy. To land Chris Jericho, at that point, Jericho was as hot as he had ever been, like, between wrestling and music. And then he was branching out, too, with entertainment. I remember VH1 was having him host a lot of music stuff. MTV had him doing stuff. I mean, he was really starting to branch out, not just from wrestling. He really was doing other things. So to have a guy like him on, that really was, like I said, a coup for Mike to get him. It really was. And I just remember, like, how Mike was able to do the interview. Like, one thing about Mike is he doesn't get nervous when he does an interview. He just talks to the guests, and he's so calm. Back then, you know, like I said, 2005 in January, he hadn't had 2+ years yet, and he always did it like a professional. And it's really why this show has been on for 18 years now, or 17 years. The reason it's in its 18th season now, I believe, the reason it's just been so successful is because the work that Mike puts in. He works hard to make this show what it is, and it's changed over the last 10 years. You know, he went in a different route, but it's still a good show. And at the end of the day, you still get your radio in, you still get what you want to listen to. You want an escape, because now on Tuesday nights, TV's gotten so bad over the years, I feel, you know, they don't put the same effort into making good TV. So this is an escape for you. Radio really is, and it's good to have a show that you can listen to. And I mean, now, I mean, he's really branched out. He's almost doing like a TV/radio show, because you see him all the time, where he was doing radio at the time. But I always look at that episode as where you knew Mike had just really taken off to a different direction. I mean, once you had Hulk Hogan on, you knew how successful his show was. But to get this guy on, you know, Jericho, who, like I said, was really starting to make big headlines. He was really starting to become a superstar entertainer. It really was remarkable that Mike was able to get him on. And he's gotten so many guests on, and I will flash back to other episodes, but that's just the beauty of Trash Talking Radio. It's still a tremendous show. And, I mean, it's not easy to do a show as long as he's done and keep it strong. Eventually, you think they're going to jump the shark. Father Time catches up, and you're a victim sometimes of your own success, but he has stood the test of time. I mean, to do it 18 years is pretty remarkable, because it's not easy to do. Trust me, I've done a show for the last 6 years. Trying to keep it fresh, trying to keep it engaging is not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, but he has been able to do it. And I always look at that Jericho episode as where I knew Mike was really starting to take off. So I'm sure it's in the archives somewhere, or it was, and I think Mike's trying to resurrect that. Check it out. It was a great interview. And again, just keep listening and watching the show, because it's a great show. It's got a great host, and it's got great people who are involved. So just keep supporting it, and that's all I can basically say. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.